All right, let's get started, please. We have an arraignment to get to. Good to see you.
I need you to do me a big favor.
What's that?
Would you endorse me?
I'd rather go skiing with Gwyneth Paltrow.
We're live in 3, 2.
We are back, so way the back that I'm joined now by 2024 presidential nominee, newly indicted former fake president, Donald Jessica Trump. You are currently the subject of multiple criminal investigations. Would you say that's hurting your campaign, or does anyone give a shit anymore?
Well, if you listen to the fake news media, it helps. Because they're all saying it's a scam. Even people that don't like me are saying this is a terrible thing to do for our country.
You mean Melania?
I don't know how you can talk about me when they don't talk about Joe Biden, because what he did is so bad.
Girl, you need to update your act. This is your comeback/indictment tour. People don't want to hear the same old songs.
I may have made a mistake.
MAGA is so 2016. What you need is a fresh campaign slogan.
Let's give it a shot.
Something catchy, like your chlamydia, but that really also reminds people what you're all about. Pitch me some ideas.
So it's massive election interference.
That is catchy, but maybe too on the nose?
I have the right to take stuff.
Better, but it needs more oomph.
Russia.
Russia? You've done it. It's tired.
I mean, the people know me. I think that's why I'm blowing up during this hoax that's taking place in New York.
Honey, I think you're going down.
He was a sleazy showbiz phony born in NYC, who somehow won the White House over Hillary. Then after one term got the sack when Biden pummeled his ass, but now he wants to come back. He's been indicted though, and so he's making scenes. He's the grumpy, trumpy felon from Jamaica in Queens. He met a lovely lady who performed on screen. She started yapping in 2016, and so he signed a bunch of checks.
I didn't do it.
Cause he's disgusting, and so he had to pay her for sex. Looks like a butternut squash, and his hair is bleached. He's the bloated orange lunatic who's twice been impeached. A bum, a bum, a bum, ba 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 bum. He loves to rally his mobs. He's such a user, he can't win a race unless he cheats and he robs, cause he's a loser.
I have the right to take stuff.
He makes Melania puke, and girl, we all agree, he's the dumpy MAGA mascot of the GOP.
Yeah.
He's a bootlicking little butt boy for the old KGB. Butt boy. Telling his dame, say no thank you, sir. He likes to grab him by the
It's true.
and boy, he's broken just about every single law in the book. He's a cheetah looking snatching trees in his crook. Ooh, girl, he's just a petulant slob. He can't dance for and he can't hold a job without sedition. And Republicans back up all his He's a grumpy, trumpy, dirty, lying, autocratic, loony, toony, wacky, tacky Valentine of Vladimir P.
Look, here's a letter from Stormy Daniels saying we never had an affair. I did nothing wrong. I never had an affair with her. It's all made up.
Demolishing the country's how he gets his kicks. He tried to stage a coup on January 6th, and now he wants to run again.
Girl, really?
But can he run from the feds before he lands in the pen? They're bringing charges now, so yeah, he's in a stitch. He's a braggadocious, whiny little traitorous. He was a sleazy showbiz phony born in NYC, who somehow won the White House over Hillary. Then after one term got the sack when Biden pummeled his ass, but now he wants to come back. He's been indicted though, and so he's making scenes. He's a bloated orange racketeering, Putin-loving piece of garbage, chicken-livered bunker boy whose father never loved him, so he's damaged and a deadbeat phony lying insurrectionist with psychopathic tendencies. He's twice impeached and culprit in a law-obstructing, narcissistic, incoherent criminal, and bumpy, trumpy felon from Jamaica in Queens.
Felon?
Hello, everybody. Hello and welcome. It's Matt Connerton Unleashed. And we are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester. And hello to all of our online listeners across the nation and around the globe. You can go to my website, mattconnerton.com, for all of your live streaming options, social media links, contact info, show archives, etc., etc. Today is a Monday, June 26, 2023. So nice to have you all with me. By the way, a quick point of a note of explanation. If you're wondering why that was an unusually long intro with the music, I usually open with a song or two. That was a bunch of songs. So we're starting the actual show part a little bit late. I blame the weather. That was quite a storm that we just had. Now, if you're listening live and you're listening in the Manchester, New Hampshire area, you probably realize, and I don't know how you could not realize it because, and I no joke, no exaggeration, that had to be the loudest thunder I've ever heard in my life earlier. We just had quite a storm roll through here. Didn't last too long, although a little bit longer than I would have liked. But so when I arrived here at the station, we had a little bit of technical issues to figure out, and I believe it was because of the storm. I think the storm probably caused a surge in electricity, and a couple of the computers were down and had to get everything back up to speed, up to spec, if you will. So starting this part of the show a little bit late. So I apologize, but the weather caused me more trouble than that, though. But we'll get to that. We have a call. Hi, welcome to Matt Connerton Unleashed. Who's this?
Hello, Ratso. This is Jerry Robinson.
Oh my goodness, Jerry Robinson from Jerry Robinson's Video Chronicles and the leader of the Rock and Roll Army and so forth. This is it's wonderful to hear from you again, sir.
Yes, Matzo. Listen, I don't want to take up much of your time today. I understand you're a very busy man and you have many things to talk about on your radio show.
Yes.
I just need to talk really quickly about just how wonderful of a great guy that you are. You stayed on the phone with me for 4 hours straight, helping me send a file over email. You said you dropped everything that you were doing, wife, kids, nothing else mattered, and I just really appreciate you, and people need to know that WMNH's very own Matzo Ratso Covington will do anything in the world for his listeners.
Well, Jerry Robinson, I appreciate you, and that's why I was so willing to help you figure out how to attach a file to an email and send that email. I mean, I appreciate you so much. If I were a network news anchor in the middle of covering the news over the weekend, and you had texted me or emailed me and said, Matt, can you get on the phone? I need technical help with something. I would drop everything, Jerry. I would drop everything. I would drive to wherever you were just to help you in person, in fact. If I couldn't dispatch a technician, of course. You're worth it, my friend. You, sir, are worth it.
I really appreciate that, Matt. So another thing, obviously I can't say his name because we went over that, of course.
Yeah.
There's a coup. I'm taking over. I command the Rock and Roll Army.
Yes.
And I would just like to know if you would like to be my first, I guess we'll say, commander to the supreme leader of rock and roll.
Oh, my God. Jerry, I have to tell you, I've dreamt of this moment. I can't believe it's happening. You're actually offering me that I'm sorry, what was it again? The lieutenant, assistant, supreme something?
The commander to the supreme leader of rock and roll.
Yeah, yes, the commander to the supreme leader of rock and roll. I'll tell you, it's a mouthful. It's a little wordy, but I've dreamt of this moment, sir. This is truly an incredible honor. Thank you so much, and count
Matt,
me in.
You are officially the first member of Jerry's Rock and Roll Army. Thank you very much, Matt. I really appreciate it.
I feel like applauding for that. And then,
Excellent. I'm applauding on my end, but I'm holding my Jitterbug telephone. That's one of the reasons I had issues sending the email because I have the extra large buttons, and because I'm old. But yeah, that's basically what happened.
Yeah, believe me, I understand. We all get older, Jerry. It's okay.
Yeah, it's all right. It's okay to be old, just not old and crazy. Apparently, from what we know from certain people.
That's
but listen,
the key.
Matt, I really appreciate everything you've done for me. I'm going to hop off here, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. All the best, Jerry.
All right. Bye, Jerry. Thank you. Wow. Wow. The great Jerry Robinson. You can check him out on YouTube. And seriously, he's on YouTube, and you do need to check him out. I'm not kidding. Jerry Robinson's Video Chronicles. I've shared out a few things of his. And yes, there has been a coup. Not that kind of a coup. There was an almost coup over the weekend, which we will certainly talk about today. But there can be more than one kind of coup. And I'm just so excited that he has invited me to be the, oh God, what was it? The deputy assistant colonel in the battalion for rock and roll or something, whatever it is. I mean, it sounds very prestigious, but even more importantly, it sounds like something where I will have a tremendous amount of power. And by the way, you can trust me. You know, they say with great power comes great responsibility. And one thing I would just assure all of you is you can, in fact, trust me with great power. And anyone who says you can't, boy, they've got something coming to them. I'm kidding. No, you can trust me with great power. Very nice. Always nice to hear from our friend Jerry Robinson. That does open up the line for you. 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007 on the studio line. And we do have another call. Let's see. I think this might be our friend Easy G, Eric Gagnon on the line. Hello, Easy. Is that you?
Yes, it is. Hey, that was quite a storm over here, too. Wow.
Oh,
Not a lot of thunder, though, but torrential rain.
In Nashua? Yeah. Yeah, it was pouring here. I didn't even talk about, like getting here. Honestly, I was concerned because driving here, the roads were flooding quickly.
Oh, yeah.
I put off. I actually literally, Eric, I'm standing on the porch where I live waiting for it to let up because, I don't mind getting wet, but I also have my own computer that I bring in with me, and I have a bag that I carry it in, but I don't want this to get wet. And so I kept waiting, and I'm like waiting for it to let up, and then finally I was like, I can't wait anymore. I got to go. I can't be late. It's a live radio show.
Right.
So but then as I'm driving here, I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't have waited at all. I should have left immediately. I should have left on time because the roads were starting to flood here. In spots where it doesn't usually flood, and I was genuinely like coming over the bridge. I was really kind of worried. I mean, it was happening quickly. I was very relieved once I safely got to the parking garage.
Yeah, I figured you guys were having trouble with the radio station. I said, well, that's a 20-minute opening. That's a long opening.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were on the air and everything, but in order to start the show, I like to get the Facebook feed going and of course, get everything set to record the show. And we were just having some trouble with those computers, but those computers were off. But I think I assume what happened is because literally, I mean, the thunder was so loud. There was probably a power surge somewhere in the building that shut those computers off. And then, and then it was one of them, it was difficult to get it started again. So, it happens. But we're here, we're on the air. We go forth. So it's all good. I had to call Peter White and because I wasn't sure which.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I didn't want to push the wrong button on the wrong computer and accidentally take us off the air completely because we were on the air the entire time.
Yeah.
But
you wouldn't want to do that.
So Peter had to help me out, but we got through it.
Oh, good. Hey, that last caller sounds awful familiar.
Yeah, he does. He reminds me of somebody too. I can't quite.
Yeah, we don't talk about it on the station anymore.
I can't quite place him, but Jerry Robinson, I have to say, salt of the earth, and I'm very excited to have been offered the position of oh God, what was it? Like the deputy assistant manager of the rock and roll. Lieutenant major or something. Anyway, it's a very prestigious position, Easy G, and I'm excited. Perhaps he'll offer you a position in the Rock and Roll Army as well.
Oh yeah, this morning it was almost 2-hour review of the Forbidden Door, and that was quite a spectacle.
We should clarify for people who don't know, that's a wrestling pay-per-view. When you say Forbidden Door,
right.
Some people might think you're talking about something that would be more suited to Matt Connerton Unsheathed.
Daniel, the Yes Man got hurt. I guess he's out 6 to 8 weeks. He hurt I forget what he hurt, but he got injured
I did.
at the
I did see something about that. Yes.
pay-per-view.
Yes. The great Bryan Danielson.
Yes, I'm thinking it was true, but that Kenny Omega match, what a match that was against, I can't forget the other guy he was wrestling, but it was all, they were all bloody. I don't like that.
Yeah, I don't like a lot of blood either. I do want to see
but
MJF.
AEW likes to be edgy, though, you know?
They do. I would like to see, I know one of the matches was MJF versus Tanahashi. I would very much like to see that. I would like to find that online and watch it.
Yeah, I won't tell you what happens then.
Okay, yeah.
I will tell you a strange storyline, though. He said he wanted to wrestle first, so that way he could get the hell out of that Canada. You know, that was a storyline, of course. He probably didn't get the hell out of there. He probably just stayed on back. Well, who knows, though?
MJF said that?
You know that guy likes to be edgy.
Yes, he does. He plays his character very well.
Oh, before I let you go, what is that thing that Bobby Heenan said about the cheating? I always forget that statement.
He said, win it. Oh, I remember. Okay. Win if you can, lose if you must, but always cheat and never get caught. That's what Bobby the Brain Heenan used
That's
to say.
a long one to remember, yes.
Yeah.
I like the old statement that it's okay to cheat as long as you don't get caught.
Right. But by the way, EZG though, these are villains in wrestling who say these things. We are not. These are not our. We are men of honor. These are not our philosophies in life.
Yes, well, I'll leave it this great. I don't know who was wrestling. I forget now, but you don't believe this, but the referee stood in front of the wrestler who wanted to smack him on the corner there, and can you believe that the referee got in the match? I know they're all into it though. So, you know,
can't believe
like
it
when they hit the chair or something. The ref looks the other way.
Frankly,
they're all into the game. They're all part of the storyline.
Frankly, I'm shocked.
Yes, but yeah. So sometimes that review of the almost 2 hour review of the Foreign Door. Sometimes it somehow evaporates. I found that out. If you don't watch it like early in the morning, for some reason it gets erased.
What does?
It's harder to find.
What?
Well, you want to see the review, on YouTube. For some reason, if you don't watch it like early in the morning, it disappears.
Oh, Fredo is in the chat room. Says, remember when Hulk Hogan went bad? Oh, vividly. It was a great moment when Hulk Hogan joined the NWO.
But do you think that's true though? When they put it on YouTube for a while, and then then it goes erased.
Well, so if someone who is not authorized puts something on YouTube, what can happen is, and Warner Brothers Discovery is pretty aggressive about this. They, of course, do the television for AEW. They will have it taken down. WWE does the same thing. They'll have things removed.
Yeah, so if I watch it early in the morning, well, sometimes I've transferred all to my Facebook page, and so I watch it later, and then when I watch it later, it's not there.
It's not there. You know what I do, actually? If something is on the YouTube that I really want to see and I'm concerned that it might not still be there when I get around to actually watching it, I'll download it, and then I have it.
Oh. Of course, you say in the future now, WWE gets they got together with the other company there, UCF, whatever that place, the cage fighting.
UFC.
You told me that they won't have any of their matches on YouTube anymore. You'll just be able to find it out online, and it won't be any video anymore.
Huh? I said that? I don't...
Well, you would tell me, the WWE is getting together with that new company there.
Yeah, UFC.
And you would tell me when that happens, you're not going to have any of your matches on YouTube. You won't be able to see it there. I think you told me that.
I don't remember saying that.
Well, maybe Eric Piplis did from Iowa. Maybe he told me that.
I don't know. I mean, you'll always be able to find things on YouTube, just not everything.
All right, so that makes sense then. They take it off the YouTube because someone's using it unauthorized.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Thank you. Good.
All right, I'll let you go, and be careful of the crazy weather.
Yes, absolutely. All right, thanks, EZG. All right, that was our friend EZG.
Boy, you should have known by now. Easy dope.
That opens up the line for you. 603-250-6007. 603-250-6007. Of course, you can also text me at 617-917-4476. I'm on social media at Matt Connerton. You can email me, matt@mattconnerton.com. And of course, you can interact and opine in the Facebook live chat. We will say hello to everybody in there in a moment. But the best thing to do so that we can hear and enjoy your dulcet tones is to give us a call at 603-250-6007. 603-250-6007. But yeah, just to kind of finish my story and put a button on that. So, it started pouring out. I was still at home. See, I do the bulk of my show prep in the office at home, and then I come to the station. So I have it ready. So then I come to the station, and I like to get here no later than 3:30. I like to be here at minimum a half hour before I have to go live on the air and get settled in and set up and everything. But it was pouring so hard. I'm standing on the porch waiting. Okay, well, it's got to let up at some point. And like I said, while I was outside, that was the loudest thunder I've ever heard in my life. And then finally, I said, I can't wait anymore. I got to go. So I go, I throw my computer into the, because I bring my computer. I'm not worried about getting wet, but I don't want to get the computer wet. Throw it into the car. I'm driving here, and the water is coming up on the roads really fast. And I'm like, oh my God, I hope I'm not going to get caught in a flash flood here. It wouldn't have been a big deal if I still had the Jeep, but the car I drive now, it's lower to the ground, and it was a little hairy, getting here. So anyway, I hope nobody got caught in that in a really bad way. And of course it stopped raining, and I'm sure the water's, receded on the streets and everything. But, although I remember a couple of years ago, had to be 2, maybe 3 years ago, there was a summer storm where, I think it was in the summer at least, where there were parts of Manchester that actually had like real significant flooding in the roads, and it was and people got stuck, and it was pretty bad. I remember seeing images online of a parking lot somewhere in the city where it must have been kind of below street level, and in this parking lot where they had just like cars were, the water was up past their tires. Really not good. So it can happen anywhere. We're pretty fortunate here, though. We rarely have any kind of flooding or anything like that, or really any kind of extreme weather event. So we're fortunate in that sense, And then I got here, and we just, like I said, we had a little bit of tech issues, which I'm sure were related to the storm. That cannot possibly be a coincidence. So, but here we are. So on this beautiful day, it's rainy and dreary outside, but it's beautiful otherwise. We'll say hello to everybody in the Facebook live chat, and then we'll get into some stuff, because I don't know if y'all noticed, but kind of a big day, a big weekend, I should say, in the news. And that story is not over yet. There's still a lot we don't know. We'll get to it, though. We will get to it. It is certainly top of mind for me, and I'm sure for many of you as well. Hello to Miriam Banish, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Good afternoon. Jenny is in the Facebook live chat and says, Shalom from D.C. Yes, Jenny is in Washington, D.C. right now as we speak. She'll be returning tomorrow, but she had to give a speech yesterday and another one today, which she said was, I think she told me in Messenger it was the largest crowd she'd ever spoken in front of. So very proud of her. She's doing great things. Miriam says, Jerry Robinson sounded a little like Gilbert Gottfried and Bernie Sanders combined, which is impossible unless Gilbert is speaking from the grave. No, that's a good insight, though. That is kind of how Jerry Robinson sounds, actually. Although there's somebody else he reminds me of. Fredo also said in the chat room, good to know Easy G is on the right side of things. Yes, Easy G. He doesn't like it, when these wrestlers, they do you dirty. He likes sportsmanship and honor. Alex Whiteley, one of our friends from the UK, is in the chat and says, good evening, pheasant pluckers. I had to be careful how I said that on the air, and make sure to enunciate the words correctly so I don't get myself in trouble. Pheasant pluckers. Is that like a term for Americans? I don't know. I can honestly say I never in my life have plucked a pheasant. But I don't like to go near birds. They frighten me. Charles Richardson, from the state of Florida joins us in the chat room and says, hey people, your nightmare is here. Oh my goodness. Alex Wiley says, hard to drive through a storm in the Aston Martin. Eh, Matt? Haha. Oh, my goodness. Well, I'll tell you what. If only I knew. Although I wonder how those are on gas. Let me give the studio line again, and then we'll get into the news of the weekend. 603-250-6007. 603-250-6007. By the way, we were supposed to have a guest join us today, too, and I'd mentioned on Friday, but I have not heard from her, and she's not here. So I don't know if she got caught in the rain or something came up. It is not a big deal, but she is unless she's coming in the second hour, it's possible. I may have misunderstood something. We'll see. We'll play it by ear. Yeah, so on Friday night, I'm here, of course, for Retro Spectrum Radio on Friday nights from 8 to 11 p.m. So Friday's my long day here. I do double duty. I do this show and that show, and one of Paulie C's co-hosts on that show, and we have a fantastic time. Actually, this past Friday was cool because so it was the usual crew of Paulie C and myself and DJ Steve and Mike from Queen City Cabinetry, but we were also joined by Kyle Heavey, a very important part of the WMNH family, the host of Off the Mark Sports, which you can hear on Sunday mornings here on WMNH. So it was cool to have Kyle here as well. So he's a great guy. I actually was on his show once. I'm not a sports fan, but back when Vince McMahon had initially stepped down as chairman of WWE, I was invited to go on the show and talk about it. So I had a good time. But Scott Robinson joins us in the chat and says, it's a little inside, but if you know, you know. Scott said, is it the state rep-elect who is scheduled to come in today, Matt, to clear their name? No. Mr. Krabs will not be joining us on the premises. No, never again. Anyway, so I was here Friday night, and then the show's over. We wrap up the show. And then, of course, we're here for a few minutes because Paul has to save the file and upload the show to the website, WMNHradio.org, where, of course, all the shows are archived. And I'm looking at the news, and I see that something is going on in Russia. And actually, the first thing I saw was somebody on Twitter had said, made a comment about there might be a coup going on right now in Russia. And that sure got my attention. And so I'm looking... And I see what's happening. And Evgeny, how do you say his name? Is it? I'm not sure I'm saying it because you hear his name on the news and it's you hear it pronounced a couple of different ways. But Evgeny, you know what? I need to see it. I want to make sure I'm getting his last name somewhat because I've never until today. Today will be the first time I have ever spoken this individual's name on the show, or actually probably the first time I've ever spoken. Is it, no, I'm not going to say it correctly. I know I'm not. Let me just look up here. If I see it in front of me. I've never said his name before, ever. Prigozhin. Yevgeny? You see, it looks like I feel like the Y is silent, like it's Evgeny. That's how I'm going to say it anyway. Evgeny Prigozhin. I keep wanting to go dyslexic with it. See, I can't even say dyslexic without jumbling the letters. But Prigozhin. I just need to have his last name correctly, really correct. Prigozhin. I see on the news, Friday night, that Prigozhin has formed a military column, marching toward Moscow. And all hell seems to have broken loose. And I'm just in awe. I didn't see this coming. Apparently, some people thought this might happen, but not as quickly as it did. But I was quite surprised to see this happening. And then on Saturday, of course, the story continued. And I'll tell you what, I did. Look, I will be completely honest with you. I did wake up Saturday morning with kind of a fantasy of Vladimir Putin being dragged through the street. There was a part of me that really wanted to see Prigozhin get all the way to Moscow and to see something happen to Vladimir Putin. because if you're a regular listener, you know how I feel about Vladimir Putin, and I say that with apologies to any Tucker Carlson fans who might be pro-Russia. But I am anti-Vladimir Putin. Nothing against the Russian people, but obviously I am anti-Vladimir Putin, and I want something terrible to happen to him. But there's the reality of, there's so many different layers to this, which is part of what makes it so fascinating with what happened over the weekend and what is happening now, the fallout from it, because maybe fallout's not the best word to use, because we are talking about the potential destabilization of the world's largest nuclear power in terms of, Russia has the largest stockpile of nuclear weapons of any country in the world, even beyond that of the United States, and has almost 50% of all of the world's nuclear weapons. So Russia is a very powerful nuclear state. That's why whenever I have heard people over the years kind of take Russia lightly, even Ron DeSantis, I think at one point recently, I heard him say something about, he called Russia just a glorified gas station with nuclear weapons. And it's like, okay, Governor, but the key words in that phrase that you're using, nuclear weapons, and they've got a lot of them. I always like to remind people when people get a little bit sort of cavalier about how we deal with Russia and don't seem to be taking Russia seriously. I like to remind people, I shouldn't say I really take no joy in it, but we should confront the reality of it, I suppose, and the reality being that Russia has the capability with long-range ICBMs. They have the capability to destroy the United States in approximately the amount of time it takes to have a pizza delivered. So just some food for thought to continue the food analogy, because I like pizza, but I don't like nuclear war. So I'd rather avoid that if we could. So these are things that we need to keep in mind when we talk about Russia. On the one hand, yes, of course, I woke up Saturday morning with a mental picture in my mind, which gave me quite a chuckle, of Vladimir Putin, because I hate him and think he's evil, being dragged through the streets. But the reality is, of course, if that were to happen, who takes his place? And Prigozhin is no hero. He seems to be a hero to some people in Russia. I know that there were some people who were taking selfies with him and were cheering him as he was moving closer to Moscow. They had taken over, apparently without firing a single shot, a city, the name of which escapes me, but it starts with an R, on their way to Moscow. And they got about 120 miles close to Moscow when they decided to, or Moscow. I pronounce it Moscow. I know in broadcasting school, they tell you there's no cow in Moscow. So I say Moscow, but you say it however. John Hopwood yelled at me about that once, but whatever. I'm going to say it how I like. So they got about 120 miles out, and then that was it. They turned around. Now, Prigozhin, again, though, he's no hero. So while it's interesting to indulge, as I did in my own mind, the ideas of Putin being deposed and something terrible happening to him in the process. And by the way, if Putin ever is deposed as the leader of Russia, it will likely be because something terrible is happening to him. Because it will probably, whatever occurs, will probably occur in a very violent fashion. He's not just going to go quietly, certainly. But we don't know what or who or how bad they might be would replace him. So on one hand, yes, I had a mix of emotions just watching this all play out on Saturday. There's the excitement of, oh, look, it's really coming apart in Russia for Vladimir Putin. That's great. But then there's also you have to think about, but wait, again, Russia being the world's most powerful country from a standpoint of having nuclear weapons is coming apart. Maybe that's actually not so great. And then if Prigozhin does get all the way to Moscow and is who replaces Vladimir Putin in the Kremlin ultimately, he might be worse, and he might be willing to use strategic nuclear weapons, whereas Putin has restrained himself from doing, and so forth. So we don't know the potential consequences. And of course, if things really come apart, who knows? Maybe a balkanization similar to what happened when the Soviet Union dissolved the first time. when the Soviet Union came apart. And, but we don't know. But then again, who knows? Maybe Prigozhin would be better because maybe, Prigozhin, and I think this is part of why some people might have been cheering for him. Prigozhin did say, he started pointing out that, look, this war, Russia going into Ukraine and invading Ukraine, it's based on lies. They're lying to you. Now, he was very careful, though. Like, he takes umbrage with Shoigu, or Shoigu, I think it's Shoigu, the Ministry of Defense, I think is his title, Minister of Defense. Kind of like Secretary of Defense or Secretary of State here. He took issue with him and one of the big generals, I forget his name, starts with an M, I think, but avoided directly attacking Vladimir Putin. But what he started saying was, look, they lied to you, and this war is based on lies. This invasion is based on lies, and they shouldn't have done it. And we want the truth, and that's why we're going to Moscow. So would Prigozhin have, if the coup had been successful, which he denies that the coup was ever even in the offing to begin with, but who knows? So if a coup had been successful and he had taken over, installed himself, because it's not like there's some sort of succession plan in Russia. Putin's been in power for 23 years in some form or fashion. And I say it that way because sometimes he's president, sometimes he's prime minister. There was one point where he'd been president for a while, but then there were term limits. So then he made himself prime minister to let Medvedev be president. But Putin was obviously really in control. Or maybe it's even the other way around. It gets confusing, but Putin makes sure that he's always the guy at the top and has for more than 2 decades now. But would Prigozhin have gotten in there and said, that's it, we're ending this war? Maybe, who knows? But we should be very clear about who Evgeny Prigozhin is. Of course, head of the Wagner Group, a criminal and a butcher. Not a good guy, and nobody should be cheering for him. And I suppose nobody should be cheering him on. So maybe I was wrong to even ever have those fantasies about something terrible happening to Vladimir Putin under these circumstances. But, but who could blame me? I mean, the man is responsible for so much death and misery. And, if there is a hell, I would hope that there's a special corner there for him. But we don't know. We don't know what the result of that would have been. By the way, it is probably very unlikely, and this may have a lot to do with why Prigozhin turned around when he did, probably very unlikely that they would have been successful when they had gotten to Moscow anyway. I mean, I think, they had something like, tens of thousands of troops in that column, I think, but it wouldn't have been enough to overcome the army in Moscow. So Putin would have put down that rebellion. He would have been successful, but at what cost? Meanwhile, at what cost was making that deal with Prigozhin? Putin appears to be weakened in terms of his power and his grip on power in Russia. How weakened is he? I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned that some people in the media, people as they're analyzing this, I'm a little bit concerned that some people might be overestimating the degree to which Putin has been weakened and humiliated and so forth. Because at the end of the day, he is still in power and he was able to stop this coup before it really got going. So I don't know. One would hope that you would see and hear more and more people within Russia really kind of rebelling against Putin. And you would hope that what has happened now damages the way people view Putin on the global stage. So, for example, China. Does Xi Jinping start to look at Vladimir Putin and say, he's not in as strong a position as I thought he was, so maybe I want to back off a little bit. They have a relationship where they said remember when they got together at, I forget what summit it was, and they said this, no limits to the degree to which they will cooperate with each other and work together and have this alliance. By the way, it turned out, thankfully, that there have been limits to that, because Putin did at one point, or probably more than once, went to Xi Jinping, hat in hand, and said, will you please start providing us with weapons, because we're running out. And China thus far has not granted that particular request. So it turns out there are some limitations. There might be more limitations now going forward. So does Xi Jinping start to reevaluate how cozy he's gotten with Russia? Modi was here from India. Modi, by the way, also not a good guy. And it's wild to see people in the United States cheering for him. I mean, there are worse leaders than Modi, like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, but Modi's record on human rights isn't great either, and we should not forget that when we're discussing him. I mean, he goes to speak before Congress, and the way they're cheering for him. I understand the pragmatism involved in that. We need India and they need us, and just like with China, we need China and they need us. I get it to a degree, but geez, tone it down a little bit, huh? Anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked. But the point is, does what happened this weekend begin to weaken Putin's position on the world stage? I'm not sure that it does as much as a lot of people think that it does. But I hope that it does as much as people think that it does. But again, there are the unknowns. If something happens to Putin, what happens then? Honestly, if Russia didn't have an enormous armament of nuclear weapons, wouldn't care nearly as much. But he does, so we have to worry. Miriam Banish in the chat room says weakening him can make him more dangerous. He might start making panicked decisions that would suck for all of us. That is an excellent point, Miriam. Absolutely. That is an excellent point. Alex Whiteley says Russia are getting served on toast by Ukraine right now. Putin bit off more than he could chew. And yes, this war needs to end right now. Well, of course. Unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen. But it's about to get a lot tougher for Vladimir Putin. Oh, EZG just sent me something. Oh, yes, Putin did, let's see. Now, Putin did finally, by the way, last I knew, now, I don't know if this is still the case at this moment, but last I knew, no one was exactly sure where Vladimir Putin was or is. I mean, he did make an address to the nation, and we will look at this. EZG sent this. Thank you, Eric. He did make an address, but that doesn't mean he's necessarily at the Kremlin. And that was the other thing too So, and by the way, where is Prigozhin? I think he kind of put his hand up today and said, "Oh, I'm in Minsk. I'm fine. I'm in Minsk, Belarus. I'm going to make sure I don't go to the second floor of any buildings," because apparently that's how Putin likes to kill people. He likes to have them shoved out of windows. I mean, he also likes to poison them. Alexei Navalny can tell you that, but apparently there's one of his favorite modus operandi is to have his opponents pushed out of windows. But we don't know that. We don't know who is actually where. They can tell us where they are, but are they really there? So let's look at this. Eric sent us this from Euronews.com. In his address to the nation, Russian President Vladimir Putin condemned what he called the criminal actions of those who staged an armed mutiny. Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked the nation today for unity after an armed rebellion. I'm laughing because as I read that, when I hear him thanking the nation for unity, the first thing that pops into my mind, and this is probably true for some of you as well, the first thing that pops into my mind is the mental image of Prigozhin being cheered and people taking selfies with him and people applauding him as he was about to be whisked away to Minsk, Belarus. I like saying that, Minsk. So I don't know about the unity. I think I think that's some wishful thinking. I understand he's gonna put on a brave face and try to put a positive spin on things. But anyway, I'm sorry. I couldn't get out of that. I couldn't even get through that sentence without laughing and thinking of, people treating Prigozhin like he's some sort of hero. And Putin's talking about unity. Anyway, all right, back to it. Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked the nation for unity after an armed rebellion over the weekend was aborted less than 24 hours after it began. Earlier in the day, the mercenary chief defended his short-lived insurrection in a boastful statement. In his first appearance since the rebellion ended, Putin also thanked most of the mercenaries for not letting the situation deteriorate into bloodshed. He said all the necessary measures have been taken to protect the country and the people from the rebellion. Wait, am I understanding this correctly? He thanked most of the mercenaries for not letting the situation deteriorate into bloodshed? This is not typical Putin. Usually, vintage Putin is you crossed me, or you dared to almost cross me, or you dared threaten to cross me, or you dared even allowed the faintest thought or idea enter your mind to cross me. So now you must die. That's, you won't know it's coming. You won't see it's coming, but now I'm going to kill you. That's what Putin usually does. He doesn't usually thank people for not taking things too far. That's very conciliatory on Vladimir Putin's part, which makes me suspect that either he's terrified that those same mercenaries will rise again, whether Prigozhin's around or not, which is probably unlikely, or he's trying to sweet talk them into signing up with the Russian military, because that was apparently part of the deal. The Wagner Group mercenaries who were in that column marching toward Moscow, they will not be prosecuted. They will not be charged if they simply agree to sign contracts with the Russian military and go fight with those clowns and go back into Ukraine and walk into the meat grinder that the Russian military walks you into. So I don't know, or he's just trying to lull them into a false sense of security where they will think, oh, we're safe. He's thanking us. He appreciates us. We didn't let things get too out of control. That's wonderful. And then he, will kill them. I don't know. Anyway, so he thanked them. He blamed, quote, Russia's enemies and said they miscalculated. Now, this is, this is part of the spin. And by the way, completely predictable. So he wants to spin it as the United States and the rest of NATO. They did this, which obviously he knows is BS. And obviously everyone else knows is BS. But that's what he's going to try to spin this as. Because from the beginning, he's tried to, from the moment that the United States and others began supporting, the rest of NATO began supporting Ukraine in this war, Putin has tried to spin it as, we're not at war with Ukraine, we're at war with NATO, we're at war with the West. And Ukraine is a part of that now, or they're trying to be. But that's who we're really at war with. The Kremlin also tried to project stability today when authorities released a video of Russia's defense minister reviewing troops in Ukraine. Oh, okay. Yevgeny Prigozhin, the head of the mercenary group, said he wasn't seeking to stage a coup, but was acting to prevent the destruction of Wagner, his private military company. He said in an 11-minute statement, giving no details about where he was or what his plans were, quote, we started our march because of an injustice, unquote. Okay. What does that mean? Actually, he had said, even when this began on Friday night, he said, this isn't a coup. We're on some sort of, we're seeking truth or justice or something. And it seemed to be in regard to him blaming the Russian military for killing some of his guys in an airstrike and, fog of war type stuff, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. There's so much of this that is so bizarre. Hello to Mike from Queen City Cabinetry, who joins us in the Facebook live chat. Also, Archer Flight, who says, we are watching you from Greensboro, North Carolina. The feud between the Wagner Group leader and Russia's military brass has festered throughout the war, erupting into a mutiny over the weekend when mercenaries left Ukraine to seize a military headquarters in a southern Russian city. They rolled seemingly unopposed for hundreds of miles toward Moscow before turning around after less than 24 hours on Saturday. The Kremlin said it had made a deal for Prigozhin to move to Belarus and receive amnesty along with his soldiers. There was no confirmation of his whereabouts today, although a popular Russian news channel on Telegram reported that he was at a hotel in the Belarusian capital of Minsk. By the way, funny thing about that, apparently the hotel that he's alleged to be at, so I guess we do know where he is, assuming that that's true. The hotel that he's at has no windows, or at least a part of the hotel that he's in. And that's not a coincidence. Again, Putin likes having people pushed out of windows if you cross him. So, smart. And that guy Prigozhin should not leave the bottom floor of any building. He should always remain on the ground floor. Prigozhin taunted Russia's military today, calling his march a masterclass on how it should have carried out the February 2022 invasion of Ukraine. He also mocked the military for failing to protect Russia, pointing out security breaches that allowed Wagner to march 780 kilometers toward Moscow without facing resistance. The bullish statement made no clearer what would ultimately happen to Prigozhin and his forces under the deal purportedly brokered by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. Prigozhin said only that Lukashenko, quote, proposed finding solutions for the Wagner private military company to continue its work in a lawful jurisdiction, unquote. That suggested Prigozhin might keep his military force, although it wasn't immediately clear which jurisdiction he was referring to. And by the way, that might be what keeps Prigozhin alive. See, if it were anybody else, you would know their days were probably numbered because, again, what Putin does to his political enemies, to anyone who dares cross him, is he kills them. In the case of Prigozhin, though, you're talking about somebody who has this very large private military who might just come and kill you if you kill their leader. So it's not quite as simple. In other words, trying to get Prigozhin is not quite as simple as, say, poisoning Alexei Navalny. I can never say his name. Navalny. Okay. The independent Russian news outlet, let me rephrase because I have no idea how to pronounce that. An independent Russian news outlet claimed, so I don't have to say the name, claimed the construction of a field camp for up to 8,000 Wagner troops was underway in an area of Belarus about 200 kilometers north of the border with Ukraine. The report could not be independently verified. The Belarusian military, or Belarusian, I hear it pronounced both ways. Yeah, we'll go with Belarusian military. It's easier to say. Monitoring group, monitoring group, I have no idea how to say that, said today on Telegram that it had seen no activity in that district consistent with construction of a facility and had no indications of Wagner convoys in or moving toward Belarus. Though the mutiny was brief, it was not bloodless. Russian media reported that several military helicopters and a communications plane were shot down by Wagner forces, killing at least 15. I didn't realize that, actually. Prigozhin expressed regret for attacking the aircraft, but said they were bombing his convoys. Yes, okay. that goes back to he claimed that they were bombing his convoys. Russian media reported that a criminal case against Prigozhin has not been closed despite earlier Kremlin statements, and some Russian lawmakers called for his head. Andrei Gurulev, a retired general and current lawmaker who has had rows with the mercenary leader, said Prigozhin and his right-hand man Dmitry Utkin deserve, quote, a bullet in the head, unquote. That is very blunt. And Nikita Yurefev, a city council member in St. Petersburg, said he filed an official request with Russia's prosecutor general's office and the Federal Security Service, or FSB, asking who would be punished for the rebellion, given that Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed in a Saturday morning address to punish those behind it. It was unclear what resources Prigozhin can draw on and how much of his substantial wealth he can access. Police searching the St. Petersburg office and the rebellion found 4 billion rubles in trucks outside the building, according to Russian media reports confirmed by the Wagner boss. He said the money was intended to pay his soldiers' families. Russian media reported that Wagner offices in several cities had reopened on Monday, and the company had resumed enlisting recruits. So you have to remember, Wagner, they operate in other parts of the world, like in Africa. They have a large operation there. Part of how Prigozhin makes his money is, they steal from these countries in Africa. Mining operations and so forth. In a return to at least superficial normality, Moscow's mayor announced an end to the counterterrorism regime imposed on the capital Saturday when troops and armored vehicles set up checkpoints on the outskirts and authorities tore up roads leading into the city. The defense minister published a video of Defense Chief Sergei Shoigu in a helicopter and then meeting with officers at a military headquarters in Ukraine. It was unclear when the video was shot. It came as Russian media speculated that Shoigu and other military leaders have lost Putin's confidence and could be replaced. Before the uprising, Prigozhin had blasted Shoigu and General Staff Chief General Valery Gerasimov with expletive-ridden insults for months, accusing them of failing to provide his troops with enough ammunition during the fight for the Ukrainian town of Bakhmut, the war's longest and bloodiest battle. Prigozhin's statement appeared to confirm analysts' view that the revolt was a desperate move to save Wagner from being dismantled after an order that all private military companies signed contracts with the defense ministry by July 1. That part of it I did not realize. Interesting, because I've been trying to understand why would Prigozhin do this to begin with. He's essentially now has a price on his head, presumably. He's got to be in terrible danger. Prigozhin said most of his fighters refused to come under the defense ministry's command, and the force planned to hand over the military equipment it was using in Ukraine on June 30th after pulling out of Ukraine and gathering in the southern city of, this is the name of the city I was trying to remember earlier, Rostov-on-Don. Rostov-on-Don. That's the city that they took over without, Prigozhin claims, without firing a single shot. He accused the defense ministry of attacking Wagner's camp, prompting them to move sooner. A Russian political analyst said on Twitter, actually, I might be able to say this, Tatiana Stanovaya said on Twitter that Prigozhin's mutiny, quote, wasn't a bid for power or an attempt to overtake the Kremlin, unquote, but a desperate move amid his escalating rift with the military leadership. While Prigozhin could get out of the crisis alive, he doesn't have a political future in Russia under Putin. It was unclear what the fissures opened by the 24-hour rebellion would mean for the war in Ukraine, where Western officials say Russia's troops suffer low morale. Wagner's forces were key to Russia's only land victory in months in Bakhmut. The UK Ministry of Defense said today, and Ukraine had gained impetus in its push around Bakhmut, making progress north. Okay, we're getting into a little bit into the weeds here, but kind of gets us up to speed. But there is more to dig into here. Like I said, there's quite a few layers, but we are well past the top of the hour. So let's do this. Let's take a break. Oh, what was I going to play? I had a song I was going to play. You know what? We should let's play a little oh, what's this? Ooh, Mistress of Eternity. Yeah, let's play this. This is Heel's Throne, band from Germany we had on recently. Yeah, this is good. We'll give this a listen. Good to play something out of Europe. And we'll show some love to our amazing sponsors, and then we'll be back. There's plenty more to peel on this onion, so I think we'll stick with the topic at hand. But more Unleashed coming up. Don't go away.
At the gate of fear, in the roots of faith, trusting eternal freedom, waiting the great hall.
Come on down to the Hop Knot at 1000 Elm Street, Manchester's premier craft beer and gourmet pretzel bar. Tell us more, Trudy.
We make our dough fresh every day. We make a variety of styles of pretzels and serve craft beer, cocktails, and a few bottles of wine. We do the traditional pretzel, and we have multiple flavors for that. We also do stuffed pretzels, pretzel sandwiches, free dessert pretzels, and pretzel knots.
The Hop Knot in the Brady Sullivan Plaza at 1000 Elm Street.
Bring your kitchen to life with Queen City Cabinetry, located at 87 Elm Street in the historic Sunbeam Mall in Manchester. Open Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and Saturdays, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. They can be reached at 603-222-2007 or on the web at queencitycabinetrynh.com. Come see the possibilities. Queen City Cabinetry, another proud sponsor of WMNH.
Clemento's Pizzeria, family friendly, awesome for a date night. Clemento's Pizzeria.
For delivery, call 603-782-8450.
Clemento's Pizzeria, the best pizza in town.
1875 South Willow Street in Manchester, New Hampshire.
Best cocktails around.
Come in as friends and leave as family.
This hour on WMNH is sponsored by CGI Business Solutions, located at 5 Dartmouth Drive in Auburn. They serve all your business needs, including employee benefits planning, corporate design and business administration, investments and wealth management, and customized business insurance solutions. Their phone number is 866-841-4600 or on the web at cgibusinesssolutions.com.
Welcome back, everybody, as we proceed into our final segment today on Matt Connerton Unleashed. We are live from the studios of WMNH 95.3 FM in glorious downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Also on Comcast 97 if you're in Manchester. And hello to all of our online listeners across the nation and around the globe. You can go to my website, mattconnerton.com, for all your live streaming options, social media links, contact info, show archives, etc., etc. Today is Monday, June 26, 2023. And the studio line is open, 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. You can also text me at 617-917-4476. I'm on social media at Matt Connerton. You can email me, matt@mattconnerton.com. And, of course, you can interact and opine in the Facebook live chat. But the best thing to do so that we can hear and enjoy your dulcet tones is to give us a call at 603-250-6007, 603-250-6007. Of course, we've been talking about today the big news over the weekend, the coup attempt, although Prigozhin says it was not a coup, and it certainly didn't get very far. But quite the news coming out of Russia over the weekend, and it will be fascinating to see what happens from here. Obviously, you know, the Ukrainians were very happy to see this. And I think that they would have been happiest if there had, in fact, been fighting on the streets of Moscow, the Wagner Group versus the Russian military there. But they would have been happy to see that. But the truth is, you know, if you take the Wagner Group, if the Wagner Group is no longer in the fight, then the Ukrainians already, I mean, this is a big victory for them. Because going forward, if the Ukrainians are having to fight, trying to fend off the largely incompetent, undertrained, inexperienced Russian military, I mean, they've really underperformed. People, I remember very early in this conflict when Russia first went in and began to invade Ukraine. People were pretty surprised at the apparent incompetence of the Russian military. They did not seem to be performing up to the standard that one would have expected, which is a good thing, right? And, you know, and it helps that the Ukrainians were willing to put up a hell of a fight and that we were helping them, aiding them with weapons and so forth. But now, what happens now that you take the Wagner Group out? Because you had the reason that Putin wanted the Wagner Group in there helping to fight is that not only are they ruthless, you know, the Wagner Group, these are mercenaries who, I think most of them, if I understand correctly, are criminals. They were in prison, and you know, someone comes along and says, "Hey, you can get out of prison, but you know, you can go with us and fight, and you might very well die in battle. But if you're lucky enough to live, your criminal record will be expunged, and you can have a life again." And so people take that deal, and they go, and Prigozhin, as a commander, seems to know what he's doing because they had a lot of success. But the gains that the Russian military was able to make, however, in most cases temporary they might be, like taking Bakhmut, for example, that was the Wagner Group. That wasn't the Russian military. That was the Wagner Group who was able to do that. So now you take them out of the equation, and what do you have? You just have an incompetent Russian military to deal with. So it's definitely a win for Ukraine. I mean, again, I'm sure if you're sitting in Ukraine and you see what's happening in Russia and you see the Wagner Group marching toward Moscow, you know, you're pulling out the popcorn and you're having a good time watching this. There was somebody who actually, I think somebody in Zelensky's administration who even posted a picture of himself eating popcorn and watching what was happening or something like that. But you take the Wagner Group out of it, and you know, this. I mean, I'm not saying that now Ukraine will be able to successfully kick Russia out. I think this war is going to grind on no matter what. But it just got a lot tougher for Vladimir Putin. But the other thing is too, not only has the Russian military been shown to be largely incompetent, but morale. How much lower is morale going to get? See, I wonder how much of this filters down, how much of what's going on, because we live in a world where, you know, you have the internet, and I realize that in some places the internet is restricted somewhat. So you can't necessarily access all the same information and data in Russia or in China or in Iran or many other places that you can in the United States and in NATO countries and so forth, right? You know, governments control as best they can what information filters down to their citizens. But you can't control all of it. You can't block all of it. And there are apps that are used, like I guess Telegram is very popular in Russia. The Telegram app, because you can communicate with that and they can't keep you from communicating with it. So how much of this is filtering down to these conscripts? Remember, many of these people, maybe most, I don't know the numbers of these individuals that are fighting in the Russian military, they were drafted. They're not even volunteer army. And of course, we know many of them who even were volunteer army, they were told, before the conscription started, before the invasion of Ukraine started, they were told, yeah, we're just going on a training exercise. Oh yeah, we're going to go to the border. We're going to go to the border of Russia and Ukraine, but it's an exercise. It's a training exercise. That's all. And then next thing you know, they're going in and they're invading. It's no secret that they were lied to. So what does it do to the morale? Because if you want to have your military be successful in any kind of an operation, you want them to feel good about what they're doing in some way, right? I mean, it's probably impossible for most people, unless, you're a total psychopath, to actually feel good about going and killing people. People who, in this case, people who aren't much different from you, people who look like you, who speak the same language, people who you might even know. But you want them to be motivated, right? Well, what does something like this do? If morale is already low, because first they were told, what's this, a training exercise? And then it turned out to be a full-scale invasion. And then I'm sure they were told by their commanders, well, okay, yeah, whoops, yeah, it's a full-scale invasion. But don't worry, we're just taking Ukraine. We're much more powerful. We'll overrun them. It's going to be great. Then it turns out not to be so great because Ukrainians fight back. They're not just going to roll over and die for you. And, over the course of this, geez, what has it been now? Has it been a year and a half? No, not quite, right? I think I'm not good at math. It's approaching a year and a half. So we've all heard the stories and seen the stories about supply line issues in terms of getting ammunition to the troops, getting food to the troops, getting military equipment that works properly, that functions correctly. All of this. So all of that has to take a terrible toll on morale. And then on top of all of that, here you are fighting in the Russian military for a cause that you're probably not too enthusiastic about to begin with, or maybe even feel terribly about. You're just trying to get through it. And then you start hearing about the Wagner Group marching toward Moscow. And you start hearing about how Prigozhin's been saying, the guy running the Wagner Group from the beginning and then recently saying it pretty loudly that, you've all been lied to. And this is just those in control of the military in Russia trying to line their own pockets. They're just doing it for themselves and their own enrichment. They don't actually even care that much about Ukraine. It's all a scam. Boy, that's all got to weigh on you. Right? So this is all very good for Ukraine. Because you've got an incompetent Russian military to begin with. They couldn't get it done on their own, so they needed the Wagner Group, and now the Wagner Group is going away. And bonus, now if you're in the Russian military, some of your new fellow soldiers will actually be from the Wagner Group, because they either have to agree to sign up to be part of the actual Russian military, or they might get sent back to prison. I say back to prison because a lot of these people are convicts to begin with. And they got out of prison by agreeing to fight for the Wagner Group. Well, now these people are going to be fighting alongside you. And they are vicious. The Wagner Group is known for being quite vicious. Butchers. You don't know if you can trust them. You don't know is there going to be another mutiny? Now you're going to be caught in the middle of it. What a miserable time to be a Russian soldier fighting this war. It's all got to weigh on you. And how are they going to keep these, how's Putin going to keep these people motivated? Meanwhile, Putin is in the weakest position that he's been in 23 years. What happened over the weekend, again, just because it was over quickly, doesn't mean that the damage is not long-term. Now, I said earlier in the show, and for those of you just joining us, you didn't hear me say it, but I did say earlier in the show, I'm a little bit concerned that there might be some degree of irrational exuberance when people are talking about Putin's weakened position. Time will tell if his position has been weakened as much as some of us would like to believe that it has. Time will tell. Hopefully it has. Hopefully it's been weakened even more than any of us think. But I'm not so sure we should be racing to that conclusion, much as we want to believe that. But in all of his time, I mean, he's never faced anything like this. And we know, historically, when there's a coup attempt, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, there was a coup attempt in 1991. Hardliners attempted to take over, and that didn't work out. But then by 1993, Gorbachev was out anyway. So again, there's lasting damage that is done, even if there is no coup attempt. And again, I get it. Prigozhin said, well, it was never meant to be a coup. Okay. But regardless, there's damage done, and Putin does seem to be in somewhat of a weakened position. Alex Whiteley says in the chat room, I think all this does is give the Ukrainians a bit of respite at best. Well, yeah, I would say, though, I don't think there's any respite in that they're not going to let up at all. That's the thing. The Ukrainians have just continued, they every opportunity they have to fight back, they take it and they push it as far as they can. So I think they're just going to keep fighting harder and harder and really take advantage of this. Alex Whiteley says, could all be smoke and mirrors, propaganda designed to throw Ukraine off its guard. I doubt it. I doubt that, Alex, because that's a hell of a risk for Putin to take, the damage to his own reputation in the process of this. Yeah, it's an interesting theory. And I had thought of that too, but it seems unlikely to me. Ron is on the line. Hi, Ron.
Yeah, Matt, geez, I wish you had another 2 hours. You got such a great show going on here.
Oh, thank you.
So much info, and this is the kind of stuff that I collect. Tell me about winter. It's come and gone just once. It affected Ukraine more than Russia. What did winter have to do with the war, as far as getting people recollecting, resupplying? I don't know. And I'll take your answer off the air.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Appreciate it. All right, that was our friend Ron, and I don't know. I think I think this past winter, there was a lot of worry about how Ukraine was going to survive. Although, to be honest with you, see, when I think of winter and its effect on the war, I don't think so much of. I mean, look, the Ukrainians have shown themselves to be very tough, tougher than anyone imagined, especially Vladimir Putin, I think, right? So they dig in and they get through it. I don't know I think in some ways winter might actually help the Russians, because something that went wrong for the Russians, if you think back to the start of the invasion, because that was in February of last year, when Putin rolled the tanks, it was still winter. So the ground was still frozen. And we operate under the assumption that Putin thought that it would be easy, that this whole thing would be over quick and easy, a couple of days. Maybe he thought, they'd be greeted as liberators, quote unquote. Remember that phrase from American history? But what happened was, they got bogged down because the Ukrainians fought back, again, more so than Putin or anyone probably expected. And then so it's winter turns to spring, and the ground is beginning to thaw, and everything's turning to mud, and these big Russian tanks are getting stuck in the mud. So I think as far as rolling the tanks, it was an advantage during winter. It is an advantage during winter, but but then when the thaw comes, you got tanks getting stuck. But honestly, when I think of winter, the first thing that I think of in terms of this war is not Ukraine or Russia or the fighting. The first thing I think of is Germany, because I like to give credit where credit is due. So, for example, very early in the war, I said, hey, shout outs to Poland because Poland really stepped up huge in terms of taking in refugees spilling over the borders. And they didn't complain about it. They were glad to do it. I mean, I'm sure it caused a lot of internal strife within the country, but they really stepped up and did it. But I also, whenever I think of winter, I always want to give props to Germany. Germany has been very heavily dependent on Russian energy. And Germany said, this winter, we are not going to use Russian energy to keep warm. We're going to be self-sufficient. And nobody thought they could do it. And I think everyone understood, okay, Germany's going to do the best that they can here to cut off Russia. But Germany cannot allow itself to freeze to death either. So, there might have to be some compromise there. There might have to be some give. Germany didn't give in. They got through it. They figured it out, and they got through the winter. And much respect to Germany for that. But I know, in terms of Ukraine, I know the winters there are brutal. And so I'm sure it's very difficult. Fighting there is probably more difficult in the winter in that sense. But other than that, I don't know. I hope that somewhat answers your question, Ron. I'm not sure I know enough about the fighting in the different seasons to really answer that effectively. But it's a good question. And, unfortunately, there may be more winters to come as this war drags on. There might be more winters to come where we get to observe that if this war does drag on for years, which it very well may. But then again, you take the Wagner Group out of the equation, maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. It's possible that Putin's going to have to come to the negotiating table because, again, the Russian military in itself just isn't enough to do this. Without the Wagner Group, they're gonna continue to be decimated. But there's no clear off ramp for Putin either. What was the? There was something else. Oh, Adam Kinzinger, who I think he's an analyst now for CNN. He left Congress. He was part of the committee, the January 6th committee, of course, one of the two Republicans, along with Liz Cheney on the committee. And since then, he's been, I think he works as an analyst for CNN primarily. But interestingly enough, now you've seen in the Republican Party in recent years, some Republicans who seem to have somewhat of an affinity for Russia and for Putin. Hopefully less so. I think some of them have found that not tenable to maintain that. But, Tucker Carlson, who is kind of almost a spokesperson for the Republican Party, in a sense, with his show. I remember when the war started, Carlson openly said that he was rooting for Putin. His exact words. He said, "I'm rooting for Putin." So there is certainly a pro. There seems to be a pro. Again, hopefully it's shrinking, but a pro-Russia wing of the Republican Party. And this is from Newsweek. Adam Kinzinger mocks Republican Russia lovers as Putin faces mutiny. It says here, former Representative Adam Kinzinger took aim at high-profile Republicans who he called Russia lovers on Twitter, as Russian President Vladimir Putin is currently facing a rebellion within his own country from the Wagner Group. Wagner Group founder Evgeny Prigozhin, who was once a Putin ally, revolted against the Russian military defense and accused the Russian military of attacking his group's positions in Ukraine. He also targeted Putin. Okay, we know all that. I'm going to skip down here. In a tweet on Friday, Kinzinger, an Illinois Republican, took a shot at former President Donald Trump, GOP Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, and Republican Senators Ted Cruz of Texas and Josh Hawley of Missouri, as well as former Fox News host Tucker Carlson and former Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, Notably, Gabbard previously served in Congress as a Democrat, but left the political party last year and has aligned herself with conservatives on a number of issues. All of the individuals mentioned by Kinzinger have criticized U.S. military support for Ukraine and, in some cases, spoken highly of Russia. This is what Kinzinger tweeted. It appears the dream of at Tucker Carlson, at Ted Cruz, at Holly Mo, at Tulsi Gabbard, at Rep MTG, and so many more of a strong Russia are evaporating even faster. Tag your favorite Russia lover. In another tweet on Saturday morning, Kinzinger said this: "Good morning to everyone except those who thought Russia was a stable, strong country with which to model ourselves after." I'm thinking like hashtag Holly Mo and at Holly Mo, not hashtag. Sorry, the Greensboro, North Carolina contingent has me confused. I'm thinking like at Holly Mo, Josh Hawley of Missouri, and at Tucker Carlson, and of course Trump. Many of us knew it would fall apart just a bit earlier than most expected, unquote. In a Friday afternoon tweet, the former congressman mocked Carlson and Gabbard, saying, sorry, at Tucker Carlson, at Tulsi Gabbard, and all the Trumps and their toadies. In addition, Kinzinger slammed Carlson last year over his support of the invasion of Ukraine after new evidence of atrocities committed by Russian troops surfaced. Carlson has been regularly featured on Russian state television and has been utilized as propaganda by the Kremlin due to comments he has made about the war. By the way, that's something to keep in mind for those of you who maybe you oppose Russia, but you somehow find a way to rationalize in your own mind all these pro-Russia people saying they're pro-Russia stuff. You find ways to kind of overlook that. Just be aware. Everything these people say gets used on Russia state television as a means of saying, oh, look, here's some honest Americans who know we're right. You got to understand it. You know, we can say that everyone has a right to their opinion. Everyone can express themselves. If you have these people in our government and in media who are pro-Russia and they want to say it, they have a right to say it. But if they happen to be someone you like, I'm not saying just because you disagree with them on that one thing, you should now condemn them. But just be aware of how that is used on Russia state television. You know, every time Tucker Carlson publicly praises Putin, praises Russia, talks about how he can't wait until Russia is finally done eviscerating Ukraine. Every time Tulsi Gabbard spews her pro-Russia nonsense, you know, any of them, Marjorie Taylor Greene, maybe they have enough sense to realize Marjorie Taylor Greene is just bat crap crazy and they don't bother using her stuff. But, you know, just be aware. If you like these people and you agree with them on most things, fine. But don't be afraid to speak up and say, I don't like when they do that, because it's the enemy, literally the enemy, takes that and uses it for their own propaganda. And Russian state TV, as the name, as it implies, we call it Russian state TV because it's run by the state. It's run by Russia. The message that Vladimir Putin himself wants Russians to see and hear comes from Russian state-controlled media. That's why it's state-controlled. And they love seeing Tucker Carlson talking about how pro-Russia he is. So just be aware of what these people are doing. And by the way, not for nothing, but, you know, we're talking about some pretty big media names here, but there's also people in the online media world, some high-profile podcasters who you're not going to see them on cable news, right? They're operating more just strictly online media, but there's some pretty big people like Jackson Hinkle, for example. You may have heard of him if you're interested in podcasts and so forth. Although he has appeared on cable news. Oh, and guess who interviewed him on his show? Of course, Tucker Carlson. So Jackson Hinkle has appeared on Fox. But Jackson Hinkle is very anti-Ukraine, pro-Russia. But here's the thing. You look at who's funding some of these people who spread this nonsense. You know, they're not independently wealthy. Somebody's paying them. Somebody like Jackson Hinkle. You know, he gets paid. In other words, they're not so much, they're not journalists, they're influencers. And they're paid to push a specific agenda. Not really unlike how if you're in cable news, you're also paid to push a certain agenda, right? You know, if you're, simplest, easiest examples, if you're on Fox, you're paid to push a conservative agenda. If you're on MSNBC, you're paid to push a liberal agenda. It's no different in the world of podcasting, except they're more brazen and more shameless about it. And you'll see these podcasts. Jimmy Dore is another example. Gee, I'd like to know who's paying Jimmy Dore. Right? He used to be with the Young Turks, super progressive liberal guy. But somehow he's anti-vax. And he loves Putin, I guess. He's pro-Russia. Gee, I wonder where he gets his money. And by the way, I can say this because I know that we're talking about people who are big enough that they're like legitimately famous, or at least internet famous. They don't even know I exist. So it's not like they're gonna, oh, did you hear about what that guy in Manchester, New Hampshire said about you? That's not going to be an issue. Let's see. Just to finish up on this. And by the way, I'm sorry for going off on a tangent, but I want people to understand when you look, if you agree with them, fine. If you're pro-Russia, so you agree with other people who are pro-Russia, fine. You can all be pro-Russia. And, that's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that you're pro-Russia if you are, but you have a right to do that. But I'm just saying, just be aware, if you're not pro-Russia, but you hear people spreading this pro-Russia rhetoric, it's not, this isn't something that just happens in an echo chamber. There's a larger purpose for what they're doing. And I'm worried that people don't realize that and they're naive to it. And then they act as enablers without meaning to for that kind of thing. Okay, just to finish this off. In 2021, Ted Cruz was accused of promoting Russia propaganda, while Green has repeatedly ripped the Biden administration for sending military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine, and has previously criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Trump has described Putin as, quote, very smart, unquote, and repeatedly touted his positive relationship with the Russian leader while criticizing the administration of Joe Biden's response to the war in Ukraine. During an appearance on CNN on Friday, Kinzinger called Prigozhin's stance toward the Russian military a massive blow to Carlson, who he accused of, quote, parroting Putin talking points and lies. Kinzinger also said, quote, I think on the other hand, too, this is extremely good for the war in Ukraine, because even if, as Prigozhin is marching on Moscow, even if that fails, Wagner is out of the fight, and they were a significant part of the effort against Ukraine, not to mention that all around the world, Wagner protects Russian interests, whether it's in Africa, Libya, and other places, unquote. Right, exactly. By the way, that is part, though, of what Kinzinger points out there about Wagner, about Prigozhin, and the Wagner Group specifically, and their operations around the world. It almost, in a way, to me, makes it even that much more puzzling, Prigozhin's behavior, because it seems to me he's got quite a business going. He's got quite this international business going, and he put it all in jeopardy. He rolled the dice and risked throwing it all away over the weekend with his march toward Moscow. And for what? For something that he knew he had to have known couldn't possibly work anyway, or he wouldn't have blinked. Now, you could argue that he blinked or that Putin blinked or they both blinked by making this deal, which neither of them comes out. Nobody comes out of this situation looking good. But anyway, we are about out of time, my friends. I think I'm going to play one more track from Hale's Throne. Hale's Throne. How do you say it? Hale's from Germany. This song Faded that I really love. We do have, let's see. I wanted to mention too, just quickly. Tomorrow we have Alex Cormier, who I think is coming in studio with us. He will be our musical guest. Alex Cormier. On Wednesday, we have the Geratones. Thursday, Kevin Hammer, who is not a musician, but a New York Republican, who will be Skyping in. Enjoy talking with him. And Huey the Gecko will be our musical guest on Friday. So Huey, he's fascinating. He was on recently with Aaron Bilodeau. But so we've got a big week ahead. Today was just me, but just as well in a way, because it gave us a chance to kind of dig in on what happened over the weekend. So with Russia and Ukraine and the Wagner Group and all of it. So anyway, if you miss any part of today's show, it will be up in just a little bit at WMNHradio.org and at my website, mattconnerton.com. And we got to go. I'm going to play one more track from Hale's Throne, Faded. This is my favorite. To close out today's Matt Connerton Unleashed. And that'll do it for us for now. I will talk at y'all a little bit later. Bye, everybody.